Be positive.
Hello, everyone. We're positive, a couple of positive chaps. It's Topline, episode 77, I believe.
77.
We're approaching at the same pace that we've always approached anything. Episode 100. Time is moving.
This is the existential crisis
exactly.
Time is forever. It will not stop for anyone or anything.
Is it even real? That is a question that
we will not answer on this podcast. We will answer your burning questions.
It is a very what is it? The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. Read that book, everybody. It's really, really fascinating and a lot of really interesting. So, brief diversion here. There is no steady, uniform, because time is linked to space. There is no universal time. So, for example, sometimes we're like, I wonder what somebody, across the galaxy is doing right now, and it's actually a nonsensical statement. It doesn't really work like that. It's almost like saying, I wonder what somebody in New York is doing in Argentina right now. It's like, well, they're not in Argentina, they're in New York. So time is localized based on mass, which is it's pretty wild to think about. Also, time's very hard to prove it exists through any kind of causal physics theorem. So there's some people's perspective.
So is it like a human construct where we said we need a way to live our life, and the sun goes up and down, and so
yes, exactly. And he presents it really interestingly. It's what it is he say something about how if you shuffle a deck of cards and then it's in a random order, but then you evolve to perceive that random order to be a structured order. That is similar to how we perceive time, which is that we might just we might have created time in order to process the universe efficiently.
Yeah, that's interesting. To give ourselves some organization.
Yeah, exactly. Because if there was no time, then everything would be happening at the same time, and that would be very cluttered. And this gives us a way to understand the physical universe. But it might not truly exist in the way that we think about it.
And here's the 5 reasons why this relates to B2B SaaS.
Exactly. And then here's a picture of me delivering a pizza.
That's so good.
My wife asked me to get a pizza last week. Here's how that relates to declining SDR efficiency.
Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
What do the revenue leaders at Google, 3M, IBM, Shopify, Square, and Cisco have in common? Their teams all use Salesloft to hit their number. Salesloft is the only platform that's designed for the way revenue teams work every day, so sellers can prioritize and take the right actions to get more deals done, from prospecting and deal management to coaching and forecasting. No more guesswork, no more wasted time on non-selling activities. Follow Salesloft on LinkedIn to learn more.
That was so good.
No, it's not. We're in the great no one paying attention, and people are sending too many emails. So my magical new formula will be to send different emails, but more of them.
I've never heard that before, Sam. Please tell me more.
Value. Sales is broken. Here's how I'm going to fix it. I'm not going to change it at all.
It's just the same thing. And fingers crossed, we got this.
All of my emails will be in haikus and Pig Latin going forward.
One day everyone in the world will listen to our podcast, but until that day, we can still make snarky.
We can be wild.
With reasonable, not complete confidence, just
very
reasonable confidence that the person implicated will not know that we are.
Very reasonable. And I also think we're very open to when somebody thinks we're not reasonable, for them to come and explain it to us.
We have David Spitz on saying that we whiffed. Bro, whiffed.
David's coming on the 8th, which will be a fun episode. Yeah. David has a new mic. I've been trying to get David on.
We don't whiff on nothing. Al.
Sam, you say that we try to be discreet, but Ryan Milligan on my team, executive on my team, when he listens, he's always like, you have a guest on, and then you're like, co-CEOs, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. That's
It is the dumbest idea. It really, it doesn't work. It does not.
Okay, well, it's Asad Zaman, AJ Bruno, and Sam Jacobs. One of us has no hair product, one of us has great hair product, and one of us has no hair at all.
Well, I also have no hair product too, so I thought you were doubling up on that.
Do you use some on your beard though, like a beard balm and oil and a brush? Like
who, Sam or me?
You, AJ.
Oh, I normally do, but today I came on cranky. You, Asad, you snapped me out of my cranky mood, so I took a shower. I'm headed to the airport, going to Miami tonight for a conference. Not RoofCon. I still don't have that.
Wait for RoofCon to happen. I want to attend RoofCon one day.
I know. How many tickets has Topline sold to RoofCon? That's what I want.
I don't know. What's
yours?
Yeah, I appreciate. Well, speaking of which, we have sold $10,000 worth of GTM for Austin for Topline. Like, that's the attribution. Where's our commission, Sam?
That's going to be like $1 million.
The commission is paid in the form of your increasing notoriety and influence.
I can catch those.
And then balance to your increasing membership costs.
I don't think the quota path performance of 2024 is correlated to you
directly to
Topline.
Yeah, I start
every inbound just like that.
I start every stand-up company. Do you know who I am right now?
By the way, do you guys know that we're on TikTok?
We are?
I was on a client call earlier today, and at the end of the call, the lady is like, by the way, I saw you on TikTok yesterday. I was like, I don't have TikTok. She's like, well, you were on it. Like, I saw a Topline clip. I was like, oh,
that's cool. Good.
I don't think either of you are that.
So somebody's doing it. I deleted TikTok, X/Twitter, and Instagram from my phone.
Did you really delete X/Twitter? Because I want to delete it, but people forward me tweets, so I'm like,
no, I deleted it.
So you don't care about tweets? Like, it's like with Instagram.
I was testing it for a while. I don't know. LinkedIn's my thing. Maybe I should. We talk about it. We should be focused on YouTube more than Twitter.
Yeah,
I think we should optimize
like in terms of like being on a channel. YouTube's the next one, but I do love Twitter. Like I do quite like Twitter.
Love Twitter.
Yeah. No, I've been scrolling too much and trying to still my brain, and there's a lot of things I've been doing recently that have helped. And one of them is, of course, always exercising, but we all do that all the time. But then I've been going to concerts more, and that has been really helpful.
That's funny. I started going a little bit more. I saw Hans Zimmer last week.
Oh, that's cool.
He's so good.
He's good.
And like when you don't realize how much he's done, like James Bond, Inception.
Did they have like a visual accompaniment where they're like
images? And the whole band was there. Like
Interstellar's the best though.
Interstellar was at the end.
First time touring North America, by the way. This is his first time touring.
Really? Cool. Exceptional. Like my favorite so far has been Yanni, because I grew up listening. My mom's favorite was Yanni, so I grew up listening to him, and I saw him live, and I cried. But this was right up there. Like it really was.
I'm making Ange go through the Hans Zimmer playlist. Like she learned Time. She plays piano. Time, and then Interstellar's main theme she plays, and I like every night at like 6 p.m. as we're making dinner, I can just hear it softly in the background on the piano.
That's nice.
So
I love
he ended it without playing the James Bond song, and then like he's out here, everyone, bye bye, and he like leaves the stage, and like half the stadium just like walks out.
He wrote dun 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 dun,
and then he does it with the bass guitar and like the oh my!
Do Canadians not know what an encore is? By the way, what do you mean half the stadium left?
They left. I was like, why are you guys leaving? There has to be James Bond. Like it has to play, and then like as soon as half the stadium leaves, it goes dark, and then the bass guitar starts, and it was wild. It's very good.
What concerts, Sam, are you seeing?
I was in Boston last week for Inbound, which we'll talk about, and I saw PJ Harvey. And then on Saturday night, I saw Krungbin, which is a woman, a female bass player, a male guitarist, and a drummer, just a 3-piece. But they're one of their popular songs is on our GTM playlist for GTM 2024. Anyway. But then
The
I'm
bass
saying I
guitar
probably
is
won't
one of
do
my
that.
favorite instruments ever. Like, it's one of the coolest instruments. And bass guitarists are very cool people.
This woman is perhaps one of the coolest people ever.
Yeah.
And she's a great
Cancers.
bassist. All right.
Okay.
Listen, let's talk.
Let's talk, guys. Let's talk about Inbound and Dreamforce, because you guys were at Inbound last week. We covered it on the Topline newsletter, and so 45,000 people were at Dreamforce. I think about 10 to 20,000 at Inbound. I don't think they give an exact number. Our go-to-market tech world is led by these two companies. One obviously much larger than the other, but both category leaders in their own regards. And what was interesting was you guys were on the ground, and so I'm really curious to hear what you guys took away from it. But covering the event from afar, I watched the keynotes, and it was actually really interesting to see the overlap between the two, which was around AI agents and how they've gone all in on it. Salesforce completely all in. They've been calling Copilot Snippy 2.0. And really making a lot of fun of copilots. Inbound spoke about agents in a more experimental way, still spoke about copilots, but did indicate that the future is agents. And so, curious, both of you were there. What was the feeling on the ground when you were there? What did it feel like was the core theme and how people were feeling? You were around thousands of go-to-market professionals. Did it feel any different to last year and the year before when we were in the midst of a downturn? Now things are getting better. What were the vibes like, Sam? What were the vibes like?
I spent the week in Boston. I had a great week. I spoke 2 different times. One, I did a workshop for 90 minutes, and then I sat on a panel with Joe Rowley and Pete Caputo and actually Bo Brooks from Teamwork and this guy Jonathan Berg, who runs a big HubSpot partner, and that must have been like 500 people. So
by the way, for those that don't know, Pete Caputo was a very early seller at
partner
HubSpot
ecosystem. Yeah.
Is he still the CEO? Is it Databox or something?
Databox. Yeah. He's a good guy. But so I get, what did I hear from other people? That attendance was down. That's one thing I heard, that they felt like it wasn't that bustling. But personally, so in terms of vibes, I enjoyed the vibe. I also went to, there was a full day founder summit that Pavilion hosted for early stage founders in the offices of _VC that was organized through the Boston chapter. That was really, really cool. And so there was just a bunch of great events, and I felt like it was good. In terms of the content, yeah, everybody's talking about AI. Nobody's quite sure what the implications are. I think a lot of people hear, whether it's Benioff or Yamini up on stage talking about agents, people nod along. I don't think people really know what the hell they're talking about. I think everybody assumes at this point that everything is a chatbot until proven otherwise. Yeah, I think there was, a level of enthusiasm for the overall business climate, at least. But again, it's like me and AJ hanging out. Well, we're both enthusiastic about our businesses. I'm not sure how representative that is for everybody else. And the last thing I'll say is what emerged for me as some kind of common trend is people's nervousness and fear that AI is going to rapidly increase the volume of banal and generic communication and noise, and that people are desperate for authentic human experiences, human interaction, like going to events. And I think there's still this theme of the rise of compelling narrative storytellers that can create compelling and interesting and authentic conversations like us. Because I think the simplest thing to do with AI is to just pump out more and more bad messages. And I think the more complicated thing is to make everybody more efficient without trying to touch the actual content of the message. And then I think that what emerges from there is the people that can tell really interesting stories are the people that are still able to differentiate themselves. And I don't know that that's going to be, I don't think you can But I could be wrong. I don't think you can take an average person that can't tell an interesting story and make them superlative. So I'm not sure that. That's what I'll say. AJ, what do you think?
Well, I owe Sam an apology up front. Sam attended my speaking session, and but
Close to the front row, like just to show.
AJ is
he was
AJ
there.
is
He was
known
there
not to
45 minutes
attend.
early. Sat down. I showed up and I was like, Sam, what are you doing? He's like, I came to be front row.
AJ didn't attend mine at one of the conferences. Bad.
That's not true. I was at yours at Catalyst. That's not true. I was
Unless you had to. What else were you going to do that?
GTM last year. GTM, you said you gave me a shout out, and I just literally didn't show. I know show
had your team on a slide, and you won that.
I know. But to be fair to Sam, his was sold out. Yeah. And I did see, like, literally saw Sam get mentioned as his favorite. Multiple people said that was their favorite session of the entire event.
Right.
So, Inbound was a year-long integrated campaign for us. It's no secret that we're HubSpot Ventures backed. We have a good relationship with them, but we spent the year planning for what that would look like, and knowing that we were going to have a big product launch in April, we talked to the team. So we saw an opportunity to really announce QuotaPath as an app technology partner in the HubSpot ecosystem. Yamini got on stage and talked about something called Easy, Fast, Unified. Well, that was what her tagline was. And so easy, fast, unified, but not cheap, she said during partner day in the fireside chat. And I thought that was really interesting. The unified really resonates well with me. It's very clear that HubSpot is taking this opportunity of this craft not cobbled that Brian Halligan used to talk about as a real opportunity to differentiate, where Salesforce is Microsoft and HubSpot, I think they think of themselves in a good way as an Apple, and being able to create this like all-in-one OS where people can develop on it in a different, unique way. And we've talked about this idea of system of work, system of engagement, system of intelligence, and those things came to fruition. So we took about 20 people to Inbound, and we had a massive ROI on it. I mean, we had hundreds of conversations, but we booked, and I'll announce it right here. We booked 165 demos.
Oh,
yeah. So
contextualize that. How many demos did you book in the 3 months prior to that as a business?
Yeah, I mean, we booked our entire quarter of pipeline in that event in those 3 days.
Okay, so now let's click in, right? Because this is interesting. So there are all these events happening. People are spending a lot of time, money, and energy to go to them. And people have a pretty wide spectrum of experiences when they invest in this. Some come away feeling like you did, and some come away with really not much of an ROI. You obviously did a lot of work on the executive level around the partnership, but talk a little bit about how you got an ROI for like the actual sponsorship. How did you get these demos? Because the partnership is a different thing. Like, you guys had on the floor, you guys had a plan, you executed well. How were you thinking about it? What did you do? Why did you do so many demos?
Yeah, it was a full offensive, full court pressure, I would say. Like, everything from our booth position and how it opened up to, we actually worked with a great marketing agency called La-Di-Da. That with our marketing booth. So we had a casino theme that invited people in with a slot machine with you got 3 of my faces and you won. 3 of Ryan Reynolds' face, you lost. It's just what it was. I'm just kidding. It was had Serena Williams on it as well. And I think that this was like caused a really great conversation. People would come over from the HubSpot demo workspace and say, "Hey, I saw QuotaPath mentioned as this app cards. Like, tell me more about it." And there was just a lot of buzz around it. So I think that just like created more of inviting. And when you walk by these booths and they just like, you see a TV and the name and you're like, this is not really inviting. I'll give a shout out to Happily. They had like Camp Happily, where they had like a little fire pit and Adirondack chairs around turf where you could talk. That was kind of cool. So I think there's just like that experience from a booth. We honestly just hustled in terms of like what we came up with. We just like put the Get Plan in motion in April, and then every week we would just meet.
How many conferences have you done this year, or will you have done this year by the end of it?
Probably 10. This is by far our biggest investment.
So do you now feel like you're going to do conferences differently after this than you did prior? Because obviously it might have helped that, the quota path was mentioned on stage a little bit, but like it wasn't a huge, like it wasn't like that's not the only thing. Like it was actually, you guys did the booth really well and you got people there.
I think it'll be interesting to see if we do Dreamforce and Inbound back to back next year. And I actually want to do an investment in both heavily. Half of our customers are on Dreamforce. Dreamforce is something I've never done. It could cost conceivably 4 to 5 times as much, and we might not get the ROI. But the experiment to it proved out that like I think this is the right idea. We just have to do something that is interesting at any of these events. I think if you're out there and you go to events and you just do events and you're just kind of standing out there, if you're not doing anything that really is engaging anyone walking by, yes, you can do something gimmicky on the booth, but I just actually mean in real value of what your product is doing and how it's connecting to the conference. I used to do these IaaS conferences. What were they called? And the company changed names. Sam, you might remember, like before COVID.
AAISP.
Yeah, AAISP, and they were actually pretty fun. They were smaller, inside sales, but they were just like really small conferences around the country that were localized. And we were so early then, people just wanted to talk about tech. They're just like interested in tech. Where HubSpot was all around like, how do I create an experience, a customer experience that feels in line with the overall arching HubSpot umbrella, the unified aspect of it. And that was something that was really interesting. So overall, big kudos to my team for putting that together. And my directive to them is, let's go do it again. Let's go do it 5 more times.
Sam, on this point, right? So you do conferences and you see people that want to sponsor them, and you probably see a wide spectrum of how people are thinking about the experience they're trying to put together to get the attention of the attendees. Like, what have you learned on the organizing of the conference side? Like, what does it say about marketing as a function in terms of the creativity, in terms of the tenacity with which they are thinking about deploying these investments and the work that they do over there?
I think it's what I said before. I think that it's sort of what AJ just said, which is that it's not enough. Going through the motions, everybody understands, and it's going to be a waste of money. But if you spend the time to be creative and have something interesting to say and an interesting experience, then the returns can be very, very significant, right? And we were talking about ClickUp staged a protest in front of Dreamforce where they said, cut the slack. And of course, I don't know if Vin, who posted that thread on LinkedIn, I don't know that if he's aware that actually that's how Salesforce started. Right. And Salesforce would have fake protests outside of Oracle and Siebel conferences, and they said no software, down with software.
Such a good insight. I'd forgotten that.
So there was a poetic harmony there, but like, so what were the themes at Inbound? Probably the same at Dreamforce, right? Video, like a lot of people carrying around video.
Oh my God, everyone had these. Yeah, just like these contraptions, they were just like hook up to them. Everyone was carrying video around.
Yeah, everybody's great because everybody's looking for interesting things to say. And I did a video with Morgan Ingram, and his team was there, and they're going to be at GTM. And last year they were at GTM filming like the hot sauce stuff that Comsor and Mac Redden did, and Chili Pepper, of course, does some of the same things. They're called broadly activations, and I think that's important.
You have to be super creative, basically. Like, it has to not just be, we are going to Inbound. It's like, what are we going to do there? If there are hundreds of amazing companies that are trying to stand out, how do we stand out? Chris Quarterpot could have gone and put 16 demos if they just had like...
That's why when AJ just said, let's do it 5 times, I'm not sure that that's possible, because I think if you're going to go do this thing that's going to take a year to plan, I mean, if you can do it,
but maybe
just roll out a playbook. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe that's the playbook, Chris. What took him a year was this relationship with HubSpot, but like the actual conference thing, the way of like, here's what
Mark Benioff is probably not going to mention QuotaPath in the keynote the same way that Yamini did. There's going to be a difference there. I still think it's probably worth going to Dreamforce for sure. The difference between Inbound and Dreamforce is Salesforce is much more squarely focused on enterprise customers. And HubSpot
Why
is
do you think they both do them at the same time? Because it's impossible not to then compare and contrast. And Dreamforce has been happening since 2003, and it is Mark Benioff's playground. Like I watched his keynote, I watched Yamini's keynote. There was a delta. Like Mark Benioff's keynote was like an A. And then when you start comparing it, like maybe Yamini's was fine, but now you compare it to Mark's and you're like, oh, it wasn't that good. Why does everyone try to fit all their conferences into this short period of time? Like, what do you think, Sam?
What do I think? I think there's
why?
a limited amount of time when people do work. And this is why I don't like summer. It's like you can't do it during the summer. So then it's September, October. You're not going to do it during November because of the holidays and the onset of that. So I think it's either September, October, or maybe it's in the spring. And for whatever reason, people don't like doing it in the spring. My guess is that HubSpot chose to do it. I don't know who picked these dates, but they also have to pick these dates well in advance. Maybe this was just a bad coincidence. I don't know. What do you think, AJ?
Well, next year they announced that it's over Labor Day, like the week of Labor Day, and it's going to be in San Francisco. Inbound and Dreamforce will be back to back.
Inbound's going to be in San Francisco.
In San Francisco?
Yeah, in San Francisco.
This is very weird.
So
I feel like HubSpot's really just trying to like show that they're competing with.
No, I think there's an actual real technical or strategic reason for it. They have a lot of APAC customers, and accessibility to inbound is tough from Singapore or wherever. So I think that's part of it. SaaStr moved to May, so there's a point to that. I guess maybe didn't want to compete against inbound and Dreamforce. I don't know.
SaaStr moved to May?
Yeah, SaaStr's next May.
Oh,
wow, that's interesting. We should talk about. Well, Asad, finish your thought. So who do you think wins if HubSpot is doing inbound the week before Dreamforce, right after Labor Day or over Labor Day?
You're giving Mark an even bigger advantage. Like I think a conference of this sort is Mark's playground. I think he's really good at this, and you can tell. Watch the two keynotes. Watch the way that the market is commenting on Dreamforce versus really not the market commentary on inbound is limited, except from the people that attended it. And so I think you are competing with somebody on something that is his black belt skill set, and to give him a week over you, meaning that you're doing it first and he gets to customize his content for a week later, that is scary, because at the end of the day, they're trying to go after similar markets, and there is some distinction between the two, and there's obviously a huge size discrepancy, right? Like we all think that these are like equal competitors. Like HubSpot is a blip in the ocean compared to what Salesforce is.
For sure.
But Salesforce, I think you don't want to give them advantages. They will take them and they will run circles around you. This time, like I thought that Mark Benioff introduced AI agents way better than HubSpot introduced whatever they were introducing.
Breeze, Copilot. You're like, what is that? Asad, I think you made the right point though. Enterprise. You said it very clearly. That's the real difference between these two companies. You have Deloitte, KPMG, BCG, EY. All of these organizations have Salesforce specific practices. HubSpot does not. Yeah. And I don't think they're interested. I don't think HubSpot's interested in creating that. And so that's where the money is. I mean, I've talked to a couple people that had roundtables with high level partnership sales folks at enterprise organizations, and the conversations between those roundtables and I think HubSpot's roundtables there's still a big delta. On Yamini versus Benioff, I think it's, what I can see, and I've seen Yamini evolve over the last couple of years, listening to earnings calls, her keynotes, talking to her one-on-one. She is a very good operator. She is super sharp. I got the chance to sit down with her one-on-one, and at Hubs, she had a folder, and she just knew everything, and she was very clear with her questions and asking, and it was all about learning, and that's what I really appreciated. I'm not saying Benioff one-on-one isn't about learning. You're a founder, CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the world. You're going to have an ego about it, Where Yamini is
It's earned ego. Like Benioff can have ego, but it's earned ego. This is what I found really impressive about Benioff. So this has been a whirlwind of a year. I wrote about this where he entered the year on a high, then he got killed in the public markets. Everybody said the end of Salesforce, growing at 8% a year, walking backwards basically. And then they have Klarna that comes out and says, we don't even need Salesforce. We just did it ourselves with some open AI API. And now everyone's like, oh, Workday is not needed, Salesforce not needed. This was an important Dreamforce. Like of the many, this was one of the more important ones. And he has bet the farm on AI agents, and AI agents are interesting. So Sam, earlier you said like no one really knows what it is. Everybody's thinking it's still a chatbot. And essentially you had generative AI, which was we had the ability to interact with this and it would answer a question by predicting what's next. And since the introduction of ChatGPT and similar products, the models have become bigger and their reasoning has gotten a lot better. And we, I think, are better at using them. So what Salesforce is saying is that we now have the ability to make it do something that a human usually does, which is, okay, I need to send a service agreement. So I need to put some information in my system. I need to open DocuSign. I need to fill it in. I need to send it. Once it's signed, I need to upload it over here. So there are various steps and there are tools that you have to use along the way. And so what AI agents should be able to do is menial tasks that right now junior people or outsourced employees are doing that require multiple steps, some reasoning and the utilization of tools. Now software can do it. And so that's what they're betting on. And they're saying, listen, now you've got some options here. And this is the interesting part. You've got OpenAI that's saying, just build your own agent. Like, we'll give you the API, do your own thing. Then you've got on the startup side point solutions, right? And even when you look at sales tech, you've got sales tech platforms saying we have a point solution for this thing. And what Salesforce is saying is that's too vague. OpenAI is too vague, and this is too pointed. What we have is you have your workflows across entire go-to-market from pre-sales to post-sales built here. And you've got all this data. And now this is the right amount of stuff for us to train and then deploy an agent across. And so it's the right amount of broadness for this thing to be viable. That's his argument, is like, I'm not too big, I'm not too small.
Did he do a demo?
Yeah.
So what did he demo?
He basically demoed a support agent for, I think it was Saks Fifth Avenue. So you go on it and it helps you find clothes of a particular size, change the size, change the shipment, all automatic, all live on stage. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Are you coming to GTM 2024 in Austin, Texas? It's going to happen October 14th to 16th. I'm Kim Scott, and I wrote Radical Candor and Radical Respect. At GTM 2024, I'm going to be diving into how you can solicit feedback. It'll give you the opportunity to read minds. How you can give both praise and criticism, and how you can gauge how what you are saying is landing and make corrections so that you can have better conversations. Whether you're looking to improve your relationships at work or improve your results at work, this session will equip you with the strategies to excel in 2025. So don't wait. Get your ticket before they sell out. You can get it at joinpavilion.com/GTM 2024. And as a thank you for being a Topline listener, you will receive an extra 15% off your ticket with the code Topline. See you in Austin.
question here. I know, Asad, you don't use Salesforce. Sam, you use Salesforce.
Yeah. Well,
We use
team
Salesforce.
uses Salesforce.
We use Slack. I think all three of you all use Slack, of course.
Yeah.
No.
Right, Rome. That's right. But regardless, what AI features do you, Sam, use from Salesforce?
I'm not aware of
Probably none.
which ones.
None.
We just installed a help bot in the Pavilion Slack by this company Tribble, and that basically we trained the Knowledge Hub and all of our support processes and documentations as a GPT on this little bot. And so now you can go into a channel and you can say @help and you can ask any question that you want, and it provides some level of answers. But
Yeah.
that's a chat bot. Wouldn't call that an agent. Doesn't give you the refund if you want the refund or do anything. that's why I was asking about the demo, because it's still, I find that the like the ubiquity, like the frequency of people using agents as a word. They're just saying the word agent, obviously that's increased like, 1,000,000-fold in the last like 6 months, but nobody ever like actually, and they're like, they talk a
They're
lot
not
like you,
mainstream.
Asid. They say a
I
lot
guess
of words, and then you're like, but what does it actually do? It's like, no, it
I
can help
think
you
this is
find a
where you
shirt
have
that's your size. I'm like, you don't know what your size is?
fun.
No, but it can ship it to you. I'm like, I can change
It
the
can
shipping
change the shipping
address.
date. It can change this. So
Yeah,
here's
I
the
can. Okay.
it's very easy to minimize this. You've got to look out into the future and say, if models right now can start reasoning at a B grade PhD student level, and if the models are cheaper and they're faster,
Just give me
do
your
you
favorite
think?
specific use case that isn't change the shipping
I
address
think
on a
support
t-shirt.
functions will be 90%.
Okay, what's an example?
What support function have you dealt with recently?
No, you have to give me the example. You're the
Think of Shopify. So
agent
you're a
guy.
Shopify store owner and you're interacting with Shopify, right? And they
Okay,
have
yeah.
this huge support function with hundreds of employees.
All right.
And there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And I think 90% of the support inquiries will all be handled through AI. If you're thinking about call centers, which is like a large industry, like where I come from, one of the top employers of people out of schools and universities are these call centers, because call centers here pay horribly. But if you work for a call center in Pakistan that has BMW as a client, you get paid really good money for Pakistan, right? And so all of that just goes away. So you're able to then look at certain functions in these larger businesses that are menial tasks, essentially. They're not highly complex. They're not like, you're not replacing Josh Carter. But if you're a company that has a support function, you might be replacing that. And that opens up your ability to have more margin or deploy capital in a different way. So could companies have a different type of CAC tolerability on the go-to-market side if support is no longer a human-led function? Those are some of the, I think, lines one has to draw into the future and say, interesting or not.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm giving you a little bit of
Wrath.
pupuzos, but generally I do agree that support will be replaced. I mean, most of the reason that you click 0 when you're calling in somewhere is because you don't trust the automated system to actually. It's not that I want to trust it. I don't want to talk to.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, brief aside, Airbnb was a couple weeks ago. What's the next terrible company of the world? Citibank.
Please.
May Citibank shoot itself in the face.
That was a little.
Just kidding. That was a little harsh.
That's uncalled for.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. I just don't like them, and I'm trapped into being their customer for the next million years. But anyway, they are
shoot themselves in the face.
No, I take it back. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
But my point is that dealing with Citibank or Citi is just honestly horrible, and you get transferred. Literally, it's one of those things where like, well, you called the wire specialist team. I'm like, yeah, I thought that's who I needed to talk. No, you need to talk to the Citi Gold wire specialist team. Okay, transfer me to there. Then they transfer you, and then it gets disconnected. Then you call back. Anyway, so if support agents can help with that, I'm all for it. I don't think. Here's maybe a hot take. I don't. Well, I'm curious in your reaction. So my putting aside, what people feel more comfortable with, growth versus profitability. I think humankind wants to grow, and I think that they want different, they want more, they want better. And so, what's my point? I don't think people are going to hoard the profits of AI. I think they're going to reinvest it into more growth.
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know that it's going to lead. There's this Wall-E vision of the world where humans stop doing anything, and we're completely supported by AIs. I think that the human level functions are just going to keep pushing higher and higher in sort of the value pyramid. But I think that companies are going to want to hire more, because I think they're going to want to do more, because I think they're going to have the money to do more. In the same way that Pavilion is making more revenue and profit with half the people as we went into 2023 with. And our question, we're not trying to hoard profit because we believe that growth is more valuable. We're saying, where can we reinvest into more growth? What's your reaction to that, Asa? Do you think that Are you worried
I'm
about the
very
existential
excited.
contribution of humankind and, whether or not we're all going to be AI'd out of a job? Or do you think companies are going to reinvest the proceeds from efficiency gains into more growth?
I think right now there's a lot of pattern matching benchmarks around like how should you run a business. We sometimes try to convince ourselves that there's like this template that we can just follow. And I think one of the themes we've spoken about in this podcast is businesses are very unique, and you kind of need to know what the market, and you need to know your business, and you need to know what maybe good looks like outside of your business. And then you need to make decisions that are very unique to you. And so right now, I think we have these benchmarks. LTV to CAC should be like this, and your burn multiple should be like this. And so much of your cost is going to be in sales and marketing, and so much of your cost. And I think all of those things become question marks because you might be able to deploy capital very differently. Because we made the point last week that if you outsource your engineering team to Pakistan or India or Brazil, and you are able to do it well without quality depreciating, you now are saving against the average tech company a lot of money on your engineering team. Can you deploy that on your go-to-market side and deal with maybe a more inefficient go-to-market function till you get to a certain point where your SMB tech can get to 100% return NRR? Maybe you're not there right now, but you feel in the future we can, but it's going to be a hard part to get there. And you're able to just rethink how you deploy capital because you outsourced. I think those type of opportunities become available with AI to companies. And I do think that everybody wants to, I think how we think about growth evolves a little bit, but it's still pretty much on the front foot. Like most people want to keep going. It's the pace of growth that I think most people will calibrate on depending on the market and depending on themselves and depending on their age, right? Like as you get older in life, you de-risk more and more. And I see that with like people that I grew up around. As they got older and their family businesses, they became a little bit more conservative in how they ran those businesses. I think those are the things that change. And so I think with AI, you've got the opportunity to change how you fulfill certain functions in a more cost-effective and probably a better way than humans could do. And you take that money and you say, now what else can I do? And I do think that one of the things that will change is our understanding around CAC, tolerability, NRR, retention.
And when you say it'll change, we will be able to tolerate higher customer acquisition cost?
Yeah. We'll have to.
It seems like we need
keep
to,
saying that distribution gets harder, then but by nature, what's happening? If distribution is getting harder, then acquiring customers is getting harder. And harder is a nicer way of saying costlier, right? The harder it gets, the costlier it gets.
True.
So if it's costlier, where are we going to find the money to stomach this higher cost? It has to be in one of these other functions, either outsourcing or AI. And then we have to take that money and say, okay, now let's stomach this because we don't really have much of a choice. Because already 7% per quarter is the rate at which the supply of tech companies is increasing. I think that rate increases over time, doesn't decrease. So in a world that in a couple of years from now has twice the number of tech companies as it has today, what happens to CAC? What happens to even retention when the speed at which people can develop products is increasing at such a high rate? I think it'll be more expensive to get a customer and harder to hold on to a customer. And we need to make that work somehow. And we have to find cost savings in other parts of our businesses to be able to figure this out.
I have a related question. And I fundamentally agree with you. I think the whole GTM efficiency is getting worse is because I've said this a million times, but I think it's fun, which is that the fundamental assumptions of SaaS, the fundamental assumptions of recurring revenue businesses, even to call them recurring, is that it's expensive to change somebody's mind. But once I change your mind, you'll keep it where I want it to, which means high CAC, but low cost of service. And what we're seeing is that the more malleable the human race becomes in terms of change, the more it ripples through every part. There's no decision that's constant and consistent for all time. Every decision gets revisited periodically, which breaks the idea that you can burn a lot of money acquiring customers because you will not have the confidence that they stick around with you for the long term. I have a question though, related somewhat. for AJ, well, both of you, but AJ specifically. Last week we talked about chief go-to-market officer, and we said, I don't know that every time we think of something new, we need an office of go-to-market, or we need an office. So my question, because you have said as well, it's not that AI will replace us. It's that people using AI well will replace those who are bad at it. Do you think that we need, as organizations, is there an office of AI? I'm sure in big companies there are. I'm sure some, McKinsey consultant that transferred into Salesforce or, Hewlett Packard or Honeywell is managed to convince the CEO that they need $10 million to fund the office of AI. But for a high growth scale up that's trying to, maintain 240% GTM efficiency or better, how do you think about quota path, not just putting AI into the product, but incorporating AI into your operating system as an organization? Do you think it needs Ryan Mulligan, Graham Collins, you are the AI guru for QuotaPath. You're going to figure out where we can put in AI, how we should use it, or do you think it's just part of the DNA of an organization that everybody needs to be looking at ways of generating more efficiency? How do you make sure, because to Asad's point, the companies that can tolerate higher customer acquisition cost partially are going to be able to do so because of improved operating leverage below the line.
Yeah. I mean, that was an interesting point itself where when that was said and you were talking about subscription models of higher costs of acquisition, but higher churn. Well, you're just going back to the licensing model where you get a site license for I'm going to buy Microsoft Word and then I have it forever kind of feeling. It's so funny how pricing models have just changed because you're I'm going to buy this thing. Why would I continue to pay for it when I can just build it myself or evolve it myself? To answer your question, Sam, I mean, I personally don't think there's an office of the AI for QuotaPath, but that's probably because my thinking about it is still evolving and I'm maybe not sophisticated enough to see the future that is where we are headed. And maybe that is because the DNA, we didn't start as an AI first company.
What would be the way that you would, because I'm thinking about this for Pavilion, right? I know, and by the way, I think the team's leading me on this. We've got this amazing head of, I'm sorry, Tom, that I always forget your specific title, but he's, basically
now ahead of AI, apparently.
Well, it's business analytics systems, business insights, but he really is head of operations in many ways, or Tom Andrews, and he's amazing. And he's a Salesforce guru. And so he is constantly looking for ways to bring in automation and to bring on AI. And that he was the person that was driving the implementation of this Tribble chatbot. My question is, how do you, I'm with you, my views are evolving on it too, but I also don't want to lose, I heard, sorry to ramble, but I heard On Deck was they put everything in On Deck in the knowledge base into a GPT and they trained it and it's already available for all On Deck. I don't even know if they still have customers, to be honest with you. I don't hear about it much, but I would worry about that if I'm building a company because low cost of, that's a moat, if you can figure out how to operationalize efficiency through AI, that can be a moat that you can use to tolerate 300% GTM efficiency and still be happy that you're doing it.
Well, I think that's a different question, though, which is a question of how worried are we about this in our own businesses and not taking advantage of it fast enough, soon enough? And I'm very worried about that to the point where I ask everyone on the management team at least once a week how they're using it and how they're thinking about it. And maybe
I'm not worried at all.
You're not worried at all?
No, zero fear.
Well, I think there's a big difference for recruiting versus engineering. My take on the engineering or CX support, we just talked about this. I agree. I was going to make the point earlier when Sam was pushing you, Asad. It's there's a lot of people that sound like you, Asad, that are out in the world. That was a line. And you know what? You look, John Mulaney agrees also. If you all have it.
I've got it pulled up. We'll read, maybe for shout outs and wins of the week, we'll read some John Mulaney.
We'll get some John Mulaney quotes out there because they were fantastic. But I think about engineering and, hey, is our team, if they're taking advantage of it, can they code 10x faster? Well, when I ask Eric these questions, it's there's parts of AI Copilot that are helpful with diagnosing something or making shortcuts, shortcutting things, but like the actual deployment, production, the actual engineering work is still an engineer.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen gains where we're 10xing our own engineering team. I mean, I can measure it. I can literally look at it. Our velocity feels the same, if not lower, because of the teams are smaller. So I am worried about it. I'll freely admit that I feel like we're vulnerable right now in a way. We are releasing our own AI product in the beginning of the year, which is awesome, but it's unrelated to what you're asking around the operational rigor of the organization. And when we talk about capacity and headcount, because we're all talking about this for 2025, are we talking about AI as a capacity opportunity, or are we just talking about headcount? I feel like we're still QuotaPath specifically is
we're
just
still
on
talking
headcount.
about headcount, and
We're still talking about headcount.
Nobody. I still. I find that this is the most interesting part of our conversation today, but it's also the least structured. But I still think, like,
I mean, because it's real. Like, this is what we're going through right now.
I don't think anybody on our teams would ever acknowledge like increased bandwidth. All I hear is that everybody's stretched to capacity.
Overstretched. That's all
I don't know that I would ever hear otherwise, and that makes it difficult to contextualize that data point. It's like
100%.
Yeah.
I think in terms of who owns it, this is resource allocation. So I think the core has to be the CEO, because resource allocation is the CEO's responsibility. But then in terms of like how you make decisions functionally, I think with AI, you have to decentralize how you decide to deploy it. So instead of a chief AI officer, you have the culture set by the CEO that, listen, we want to look at these things, but then there has to be a department head that is actually looking at what is available today that is really good, that aligns with our workflows, and how do we integrate it? And is there an opportunity to integrate? Because it's not going to be like one day everything can be done through AI. It's going to be tomorrow there'll be a particular use case that becomes pretty solid and companies should consider it, and then another one and another one and another one. And so I think those decisions have to be with a lot of understanding of workflows, and so that has to be a department head that is looking at that, because it's unrealistic for a chief AI officer to understand the nuances, intricacies, the idiosyncrasies, the je ne sais quoi of every function. To something that you were saying about the chief go-to-market officer, the thing I've been thinking about a lot is that maybe go-to-market is not broken. Maybe it's not broken. Maybe everyone that's telling us that it's broken is selling us things to fix the thing.
Literally,
but maybe it's not broken. So,
in general, can we say in general?
In general,
telling
right?
you something
in
is
general,
broken has something to sell you.
Has something to sell you, but maybe it's not
New rule.
So here's the thing. I was listening to Nikesh Arora, who is the Palo Alto CEO, and he was at the All In Summit, and they asked him, they're like, you were the chief business officer that took Google from 3 billion to 60 billion. You ran go-to-market at Google. Then you came at Palo Alto, and you took it from a $20 billion company to a $160 billion company. You're the sales guru. Tell us about how you do this. And he's like, it's all about the product, guys. The product was just really, really good. And so we were able to set up go-to-market in a way to be able to maximize upside over there. But it was the product. This guy, who's considered the best CEO who comes from a sales background, did not say, I came up with this interesting model, I did this. It was all about the product. And I think that a lot of times when we look at companies,
have a few frameworks, did he not?
I think he didn't mention one though. Like, he didn't mention product launch.
Playbook. He didn't have a playbook.
And I think that we sometimes are getting distracted. Like, we're getting distracted from where the true problem lies. And the true problem in our ecosystem lies in products that are really, Sam, you said this a couple of times. We like to believe these products are really magical and exceptional and all of those things. Maybe they're just not that great. And
let's extend this thought, because I like what you're saying, and I like hot takes. What if hot take? What if nothing is broken? Yeah. There's lots of companies. It's called capitalism. Some of them are going to win. Many of them are going to die. It's how it works. And the best ones rise to the top, and not everybody can be Salesforce, and that's okay.
That's the world we live in. Yeah. And maybe
if you look at life expectancy, if you look at, the percent of people that can read, if you look at the availability of life-changing medicine, if you look at the fact that I believe we're going to cure cancer within the next 20 to 30 years, and that, or at least learn how to treat it therapeutically so that it's not as life-threatening as it used to be. If you look at the fact that life expectancy, even without having to like do weird diets and stuff, is going to extend probably into the past the century mark, within the next 30 years. Like in the next 30 years, somebody's going to live to 150.
I hope that's me.
Things are pretty good.
Yeah.
The only thing you need is more babies.
The economy is bigger, hence more companies can make it because there's more of a market and more people buying and selling and all of that. So the probability of a company being successful increases, but it is still a very low probability. And just because go-to-market isn't broken, one way to know it's not broken is you could look back 20 or 30 years from now, or let's say at the start of SaaS, and the companies that had extreme product market fit, their go-to-market metrics were beautiful compared to what we think beautiful looks like today. It's just hard to have beautiful outputs from your machine because it's really hard to build a product that can generate those type of outputs and then put a team on top of that product that is truly exceptional, because exceptional people are few and far between. And so I think what you just said is probably where I land now. The more I look at this, the more I think about this, I'm like, go-to-market's not broken. It's just hard. And it's really hard. And usually if it's not going really well, look at the product. More problems lie on the product side than on the go-to-market side.
Yeah. So let's talk about this concept of time and existential and time.
Well, the only thing I would say in response to that, Asid, because we still do have this problem of go-to-market efficiency declining, and David Spitz pointed out it goes further way back than 6 quarters. That was what was in the paper. So you're right about that, David. But then I guess one thing that is changing, it's not that anything's broken. I do think that people's attention span is changing. And I mean, I don't just mean attention span like TikTok. I mean, their satisfaction with the status quo is shifting. And as a consequence, like, you can't count on lifetime values that we've built into benchmarks for SaaS. You can't count on people not swapping out vendors. You can't count that once they pick you, they're going to keep picking you every year for 5 years.
You know how we are making it easy to onboard new customers for everyone? Like, every software company is trying to make it really easy to onboard a new customer. Yeah. That's the thing. It's easier to onboard, meaning it's easier to offboard, right? Like, you can't say it's easy to onboard and then say we have this like really sticky thing on the other side. It's like, no, guys, everything's becoming easier. It's easier to move off of things. And if we are talking about AI agents, one use case will be around the migration from one platform to another, 100%. Right?
Yeah,
has to
100%.
be. Has to be. And so in this world, stickiness is going to be really hard. Stickiness is going to be really, really hard. And acquiring customers will be super hard, but holding on to them will be the harder of the two problems at a magnitude that I don't think we understand right now. On the go-to-market efficiency side, maybe it's just how, as ecosystems evolve, one is, we don't know what good go-to-market efficiency in a downturn looks like. And I'm really excited to talk to David about that, because obviously if you compare go-to-market efficiency to 2019, when interest rates were 0.5 or 1%, to 2023, when interest rates were 5 or 6%, historic rise, tech recession, you're going to see a delta. But maybe that's a really good number where we landed up compared to what was possible. Maybe, who knows? And maybe this chart just continues getting worse because of the things that we just discussed. And we need to understand how to stomach this worsening go-to-market output, throughput, whatever you want to call it, by finding efficiencies in the non-revenue generating sides of our businesses.
We need to let Sam go to dinner, and this is a late night dinner at 10:30. So we got to get to wins of the week. I appreciate all the French that has been said. I think Sam dropped a oui on there. Asid said je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi. You had a oui in there earlier in the episode. I caught it. Sam doesn't lie about
he
that.
He doesn't even know.
Lie.
I don't know where you're going with this, but I don't like it.
But I'm a little uncomfortable.
Let's move to shout outs wins of the week. Asid, what do you got?
Kyle Norton. So I've known Kyle for 10 years. I got to know him in my first year as a recruiter. I didn't know what I was doing.
Austin was
I'd
in
heard
high
of him.
school. He was in high
I
school.
was straight out of university. Kyle was a director at a conferencing company. His team would sell people into attending these conferences, and he was really good at it. And I placed him in a horrible role at a horrible company. I didn't know anything. He liked it. I thought it was a good company. Turned out the CEO over there was a complete nutcase. He quickly had to leave. And he never ended his relationship with me at that point. Like, he maintained the relationship. And I always appreciated that he understood that we made informed decisions and it didn't work out. You take risks and it didn't work out. And instead of it souring our relationship, we were both early on in our careers where you make emotional decisions. We built one and now we're really close friends. And it's been really cool to see him and his career evolve over the last couple of years, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. I think he's really come into his own. And so as we were building our Topline, he's been one of our first ever listeners and a great supporter and an advocate, and helps with the docket, sends me interesting things for it. And so then we have just released a new podcast, which is his podcast as part of the Topline banner. And it's a more tactical podcast where he's going to be sitting down with some of the best CROs in the world and going deep on these certain tactical topics. And there is a lot of tactical content in the world, but there's not a lot of great tactical content in the world. There's a lot of 7 ways to spend your events budget. But I think his is going to be the type of stuff that CROs need to listen to. And it's really exciting to be doing this with him. And congratulations on the launch. And so shout out to Kyle.
That's awesome.
I'm stoked for him. His reception on LinkedIn of that post was got a lot of traction
for him. Stoked for us.
Yeah, stoked for us. That's
excited.
Good for us.
AJ, what's your shout out?
I'll go quickly. Mine's pretty straightforward. Kelly O'Halloran and Graham Collins ran all things inbound. They crushed it. Absolutely insane. And I am just so happy to have them a part of the team in the weekly planning sessions leading up to it. Everything went to plan. Everything we wanted to accomplish, all goals, we either 2x them or we hit them. And that takes a lot of real planning and execution in terms of making sure. Graham's entire career was riding on that week, and he still has a job this week. So,
that was unexpected.
I want to just give people some hilarious. So Mulaney did a set at Dreamforce, and I think they paid him $2 million.
What?
Jeez.
A couple of choice lines. You're hosting a Future of AI event in a city that has failed humanity so miserably. You look like a group who looked at the self-checkout counters at CVS and thought, this is the future. He added, can AI sit there in a fleece vest? Can AI not go to events and spend all day at a bar?
Wow.
What was the one with his kid, though? The one with his kid was...
He said, this reminds me of my son who's nearly 3. We like to play baseball in the front yard. We're just 2 guys hitting wiffle balls badly and yelling good job at each other. It's sort of the same energy here at Dreamforce.
Wow.
Good.
Some of the vaguest language ever devised has been used here in the last 3 days. The fact that there are 45,000 trailblazers here couldn't devalue the title anymore.
Oh my gosh. That's the biggest burn, I think, the whole thing.
It's just,
And they paid him to come do this. Oh my God.
And he's funny. I don't
How
think.
much do you think Dreamforce costs to put together? Like 20 million, 30
I
million?
would say $30 or $40 million
Oof.
would be my guess. We don't need John Mulaney to host Saturday Night Live again. I'm sorry. Like at this point, it's like this is, Asa, your point about like the lack of authentic, compelling narratives and storytellers. Like the fact that SNL has to keep hiring John Mulaney after he already worked there is maybe a testament to the dearth of quality of funny, interesting people that can tell jokes. Who knows?
Comedy is just the hardest of the spaces.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening. I do apologize for that comment I made about Citi. I just really don't like the company. But
what did you?
No, we're not.
Oh, that was a wrong comment.
Like it was a little violent. We don't.
It was funny. Like it was. That was a funny comment, guys. Relax, everyone. Like
And here's my point.
Oh my God.
Citi is a horrible piece of poop company.
It's on the same level as Airbnb. That's
Yeah,
what he was
it's
just
just not a good product. It's just F yourself. That's all.
I didn't know we were so correct. That was okay. I think you're allowed to say that.
Okay. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you on Thursday for Topline Hotline. But it's in the feed. It's going to be in the feed.
Yeah.
Kyle Norton's Revenue Leadership Podcast. It's going to be awesome. He's got Lemkin on there. He's got Dina Mehta. He's got a bunch of incredible guests. It's going to be fantastic.
Here's Mark from SalesLoft. I'm having coffee. Mark lives in Philadelphia, lives out by me in Malvern.
Cool.
I'm having
Awesome.
coffee with him next
Really,
week.
guys, 5 of you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.
This episode was brought to you by AirCall, the business communications intelligence platform. Deliver a better experience for your customers and your teams at AirCall. That's AIRCALL.io. Save time, save money, and improve performance with a single communications platform.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.